is looking at percentage increase and reductions, and we're looking at how we can do this in an easy way when we've got a calculator. So let's take a look at the first example. A car costs £35,000 plus 20% tax, so that's in addition to the £35,000. What's the full price of the car? Now, before we look at a new method for doing that, we're going to do this using our existing method for percentages. So in the old way of doing this, and this is the way you'd use on a non-calculator paper, you would have said, on a non-calculator, you'd have said 100%, that full price is equal to £35,000. And what you're trying to do is find your 20%. Well, we can do that directly, so I'm going to try and find 20% down here. The easiest way to go from 100% to 20% is dividing it by 5. So I would just divide by 5 here, and 5 into 35,000, well, 5 into 35 goes 7, so it must be 7,000. So 20% is £7,000. So you've got your £35,000 plus your £7,000 in tax. So there's £7,000 in tax, £35,000 cost, plus £7,000 of tax would give you a full price of £42,000. And there's no problem in doing it that way, especially if you're looking at a non-calculator paper. But what we're going to do now is have a look at how we could do this on a calculator paper. And the way we do that is by using what we call the decimal multiplier. Now, to find the decimal multiplier, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 20% that I've got there, and I'm going to add it on to 100%. So my first thing is to write 100% plus 20%. So 100% plus 20% gives me 120%. And what we're saying there is that the total price is going to be 120% of the original price. So my total price is 120% rather than the 100%, which was the full price of the car. I'm then going to change that to a decimal. So 120, to change percentage to a decimal, we divide by 100. 120% divided by 100 equals 1.2. And this formula up here is exactly that. You either add or subtract. Add if it's an increase, subtract if it's a reduction from 100%, and then you divide by 100 to change it to a decimal. So 1.2 is my decimal multiplier for when I'm adding 20%. So the full price of the car, I can just take my decimal multiplier, which is 1.2, times it by the starting price, times 35,000. And let's just run that through on my calculator. 1.2 times 30,000 gives me, times 35,000. 1.2 times 35,000 gives me my answer of £42,000. So it gives me the same answer as my previous method, but it's a somewhat simpler method if we're working with calculators. So let's have a look at the second example. A bill for £120 is reduced by 3.5%. What is the new bill? So again, we start with 100%. It's a reduction, so we take away 3.5%. So I'm left with 96.5%. 96.5 divided by 100 to change it to a decimal equals 0.965, and that's my decimal multiplier. So I just do 0.965 times by 120, tells me what my new bill is going to be. 0.965 times by 120 gives me an answer of £115.80. Pause the video now while you take down those two worked examples, and when you're ready, press play again and we can go on to some questions. Okay, so here are 10 questions for you to try. The first 8 are really warm-up, and questions 9 and 10 are GCSE style questions. For questions 1 to 6, you're doing an increase, so make sure you add that percentage onto 100 before changing it to a decimal. 7 and 8 are reductions, so make sure you take away that percentage from 100% before turning it to a decimal. Pause the video now while you have a go at the questions, and when you're ready, press play again and you can have a look at solutions. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at the solutions. So you should have got your decimal multiplier of 1.25 for the first one, giving you an answer of 100. 56. For question 3, you got 4.8 hours when you did your calculation. When you've got hours, you should be turning them into hours and minutes. So 0.8 times 60 gave you 48 minutes, gave you 4 hours and 48 minutes. For question 3, 59.4, 3,015 metres, 80.96 metres. When you're into reductions, 100 take away 15 is 85, so it's 0.85 times 800, gave you 680. 0.965 times 5 gave you £4.82.5. Going on to the exam questions. First bounce goes to 80% of 2, which is 1.6. Second bounce it goes to 80% of 1.6, which is 1.28 metres. She's got 1.28 metres. The last one is a question that comes up quite often in GCSE papers. So we're increasing by an amount and then reducing by the same amount. Now, we increased by 20%, went up to 1.2 times 50, which is £60. We then reduced by 20%, so 0.8 times £60 gave you £48. Now, the reason why we end up with a different amount here from what we started with is because we're reducing the same percentage of a larger amount. We're reducing by 20% of £60, whereas we only increased by 20% of £50. So the price ends up actually being lower than the original cost. Okay, very well done. Give yourself a mark there out of 10. If you need any additional help on that, please take a look at Hegarty percentage increase and reduction. Very well done.